started off in the railway as a graduate trainee, sort of a management trainee, in 1995. I can remember the exact date, 4th of September, and actually joined British Rail, and then progressed went and did various secondments across the business, and then I progressed into a track engineer, and then into effectively the equivalent of an infrastructure maintenance delivery manager. So went through the management train after quite a lot of time in sort of technical roles and design. And throughout my career, I've always been quite progressive and forward thinking in terms of taking on new challenges. So I've moved through various roles to make sure I don't get stale, to make sure I'm always pushing myself, always demanding more of myself, and that's kind of stood me in good stead. But one of the things I've always kept a very good eye on is about what we do on the railway, what's it all for, and it comes back down to we've got to run trains so we can move people from A to B. That's the basic requirement of the railway. But I see the railway as a massive opportunity for people. And that's the opportunity it's given me. So I've been in the industry now 26 years, just over, and throughout that time I've moved to different parts of the railway and achieved different things. And now in working within technical authority in the centre, I've been given myself the opportunity to take on a variety of different roles in engineering. And I think my past experience have really stood me in good stead to sort of make sure that it's still real, that we're still aiming for the same goal and not going off and doing something which is slightly different, doesn't actually achieve the requirements we need. But now as Chief Technology Officer, it's something that I've really I'm really enjoying after my stint within as engineering expert in track. It's something that I've aspired to do and really bring technology. And one of my biggest passions about young people, developing young people, and bringing young people up into the railway to effectively leave that legacy so they can take over and continue to run the railway as effectively and as efficiently than we did and we are doing at the moment. I have always looked at my journey as my journey. So any barriers or any problems that I've come across, I've never looked as my problem. I've always looked at it and said, right, I'm a human being like everyone else is, and if I want to deliver and achieve something, I'll go and do it. And part of it is my upbringing. I think my parents brought me up in that way to aim for something and get it, by whatever means, but actually go and get it, and don't let anyone stand in your way of doing that. So I've always had that work ethic within me, and in my career I have faced some prejudice. I've never seen it as my problem. It's usually the person who's got the prejudice, that's their problem. But it's certainly caused some challenges for me. The way I've always dealt with challenges is to help the person to understand where I'm coming from, but I also don't have any stigma associated with me. I don't have any particular personal vendettas against anyone. People see me as I am. I am what I am, and I'll always be. I can't change that. So people have to accept me for what I am. And what I've found in my time is having that sort of collaborative but warm approach to people, make people understand what I'm there to do and what I'm about. I've managed to break down a lot of barriers in doing that, and I've had lots of people who have worked with me who may not necessarily have done so in the past. So it's an approach I constantly use. If people don't necessarily like what they see, that's fine. I don't see it as a problem. It's not my problem. So I crack on and do what I need to do. And ultimately, I'm looking at the best interests of other people. One thing I do recognize is sometimes particularly someone in my position, I will be seen as a role model. So I do try to actually encourage people of all walks of life, and all races, and genders, to actually, just follow the same approach, and not have any stigma or have any kind of disable yourself That's how I tend to look at it. If you accept those prejudices and those stigmas, you've kind of disabled yourself and put a barrier in front of yourself. So I try not to do that, and I see things through my own eyes, and that's generally how I've progressed, as I have. Certainly for me, it's as a leader within Network Rail, it's about displaying the right behaviors, but it's also about encouragement. So, I mentioned earlier that I do mentoring as well. Um, it's a bit more than that. It's about making a tangible difference. So, encouraging, like I said, during interviews, encouraging people to be involved, women to be involved in some of the interviews, so that they get to give a perspective, encouraging people in more senior roles to be for appointments, whether it's via secondments. So as a leader, that's some of the stuff I can do, is to offer those sort of opportunities. And where I see people who've got those capabilities, it's definitely encourage that. Some of it is about going out and looking for those individuals, because if we wait for that, you won't necessarily see them walking through the door. So some of it, it's about, as a leader, it's about me going and actually identifying those people. And there's a number of ways of doing that. One is really sort of publicizing the importance of women in the organization and diversity in the organization, and then doing some of it through mentoring and identifying where people are. And something I always push HR on is succession planning. Within Network Rail, we do a lot of succession planning discussions and reviews, and we've got people at various levels of development. I want to see that. I want to see that, to see who's the next, senior engineer, who's the next principal engineer, who's the next chief engineer, because we need to see that. We need to be able to identify those people early on, and then work with them and develop them. I look at it in two ways, and I use my own journey as kind of a lever to, in terms of trying to understand why. One of the simple facts is there's not enough women in the organization in engineering, and that's a problem. So attracting women to engineering, if you don't have that, those numbers coming through the organization, then over time you eventually will filter up to the top. But if you haven't got that in the first place, then you're not going to get those, and that's part of this. That's part of the issue. The other side of it is opportunity. So, within my team, one of the things I now have is, whenever we are doing the team is doing interviews, I insist that there's diversity involved in the interview panel, so that you've got that diversity of thought, and it just brings in a different way of thinking and sees people in a different light. Otherwise, we tend to morph to the people that we generally look like us, or behave like us, or have got the same hobbies and things that we enjoy. We tend to do that, and have that prejudice, not necessarily on purpose, but it's just natural. That's what happens when we do things like that. So it's really important we do that, and I think that will help to inject a bit more of opportunities for women at the more senior levels. We actually probably need to make a more concerted effort to encourage it. And in some cases, it means maybe taking a bit of a gamble. If someone's good, maybe not quite good enough, sometimes it's an opportunity to take that. And whilst I don't like secondments, one of the things I see with secondments, it gives people the opportunity to really test them, to see if they're actually good enough to be in that post. And I think we need to use that a bit more, to just encourage people through the door, for everyone to see them at that level and see how they can deliver at that level, and then take that opportunity. But if we're always seeking for perfection, we're generally going to pick what we've always picked, which is not going to make any progress. There is a bit of unconscious bias in some of it, and there may even be some conscious bias as well. So there are several people in the engineering sphere, and I'll look at the likes of Kamini, as Director of Engineering Asset Management in Northwestern Central, but also Jane Austen, and a lot of people have got a huge amount of respect for those two women in engineering. They've got very powerful roles in their own right, but they've also got a lot of experience and expertise for years and years of effectively operating in what was certainly during their time a very male-dominated era. So I think they've done really well, and they're well respected as well. But I still speak to women engineers, and there is still this stigma around. I spoke to a young engineer about 4 weeks ago, and there is still this stigma around sitting in a meeting and whether it's virtual or not, and people are going, "Are you the note taker?" And there is still that stigma about, and we've got to break that. And some of it is about speaking out when you hear things like that. So I've experienced that within people in my team in the past, and you speak out about it. You just don't tolerate it. People will eventually work out that that's not the right thing to say. So yeah, there's still a bit of a journey to go, but I've seen lots of positive noises and positive things that are happening. The two women I mentioned, certainly a good demonstration of that. Where I'll see real progress is if we get a bit more diversity brought into that as well, because I think that's probably the other thing that's not necessarily there. It needs to be a bit more mixed as well, and that opportunity needs to be open and evident to encourage more people, because when people see that in an organization, they'll be attracted to it, and there's a lot that they can bring to the organization just by that attractive, there's someone sitting at that top, high up in that organization. Well, if they can do it, well, I think I've got a good chance as well. I can work to that. It's just an aspiration, and they see you as a role model, and people aspire to that. Don't let anyone stop you doing what you want to do and where you want to get to. Challenge yourself. Don't sit there and just follow the status quo. Challenge yourself, because the world we're in at the moment, the fact of the matter is, women have to work that bit harder than men to move on. But don't let that stop you. Over time, things will change. But now, if you've got to get to where you need to, and you have to work hard for it. Get there, because the inspiration you will be for the people of the future is massive. It's a massive thing inspiration you will have, and people, who are coming through, people who are not even born today, because they look up to you and they will say, "Wow, that person got there, even in these times."